So you might be looking at the title of this video and wondering why I would do this what if, because without the songs in World Tour, you would think that not that much would really change. There'd probably be some small changes of saving time and challenges for certain teams, but overall it doesn't save a character, add a character, change team dynamics, as usual what ifs would do. But the main reason I'm doing this what if is because it has one big change at the very beginning, and that is since the teams wouldn't have to sing. During the first challenge where Chris tries to make Duncan sing again and Duncan quits because of it, Duncan obviously wouldn't quit now because he wouldn't have to sing, and he would just now join the cast here and Team Amazon. When Ezekiel pleaded to rejoin, Chris originally allowed him, saying Duncan quit so they were down a person, but now that Duncan didn't quit, they wouldn't be down a man, so I don't think Chris would let Ezekiel rejoin the game. But if anything is proven by Ezekiel's story later in the season, he's very determined to be on the show. So much like the first part of the challenge where he didn't take Chris's no for an answer and still competed in hopes to change his mind, Ezekiel would do it again competing in the next challenge, just unofficially on a team. I do imagine he would try to name his own solo team as Team Homeboy, something like that, but no logo would show up for him, having Ezekiel ask where his is. Now that singing isn't a requirement, it's a struggle to know if it still happens with the scarabs to escape, because Chris wouldn't mention it, but Harold with his extensive animal knowledge I think would know it anyway, and everyone would still sing here just to escape the scarabs. That gets cut off by Ezekiel talking out a song and everyone running away. Still the same, just there's not a mention of hey, you have to sing, it's just Harold starting it instead. Given how much Gwen and Courtney were bickering at the beginning with Duncan, I imagine that would still carry on to the team. Especially since I could see Heather trying to put her foot down to team, but basically everybody disagrees with that because of her reputation. This fighting allows Alejandro to still steer his team off to the Nile first without Team Amazon noticing. Even though Ezekiel isn't officially with Team Victory, he would follow behind them, having a confessional saying their team came in first in the last part, so he's confident they will make it to the river first, where he can then take over first place. Once they all stop and admit they're lost, Ezekiel will reveal himself to the team, annoyed at them for leading him astray. They say they didn't even know he was following, as Ezekiel says whatever, and they probably went the wrong way on purpose to lead him away, because they're intimidated by him. Team Victory all share glances at each other that is followed by hysterical laughing from the whole group by the notion. Ezekiel gets a little humbled watching them laugh at him, nervously asking if those are laughs of fear. Everything with Team Amazon making it to the river and trading Izzy with Sierra would still play the same, which is why Izzy and Sierra are still on these teams, because if you don't remember, originally Izzy was on this team and Sierra was originally on this team, but they traded here and I just kept them there because I didn't have to switch it. I guess I switched them anyway to explain, it doesn't matter. Team Victory plus Ezekiel would also get to the river at this time. Team Victory would get started on their boat, with Ezekiel trying to make his own one-person boat, bragging about the advantage he has only having to make a one-person boat. But I don't think Ezekiel would know his way around a reef, because why would he? Instead, he would just end up twiggling reeds together, but every time he lifts them up, they are still disconnected. So he stops trying to make a boat, and would come over to Team Victory, asking if he could join them on their boat. The team is very hesitant, with Lashana mockingly saying they are just too scared to risk having someone as strong as him nearby. Ezekiel sighs and with a sad face walks back to his reeds. Since Team Victory has DJ, I think he would feel bad watching Ezekiel defeated, and says they should let him come. Some people are very resistant, like Bridget and Lashana, mostly because of his comments first season, but DJ says he didn't mean any of that and it was just the way he was raised, so they should give him a chance to prove he's not like that. Harold seconds DJ since he respects the warrior spirit of Ezekiel, and says it couldn't hurt to bring him along. Lashana and Bridget are still unsure, but look over at Ezekiel again just getting upset at not getting the reeds to weave, and feeling bad for him, they agree, inviting him over. Ezekiel is excited as he comes over, asking what he can do to help, with Bridget tossing him the stick, saying he has the most important task of all of them. He has to make sure the stick doesn't go anywhere, so he has to hold the stick with all his concentration. Ezekiel eagerly agrees and holds onto it with both hands, as the rest of Team Victory continues working on the boat. And because Ezekiel has a stick and is on Team Victory's boat, yeah, I think you can see where this is going. Harold did mention bonking the crocs on the nose during the song, which they wouldn't sing now, but even without the song I could still see Harold saying it, because it literally came up due to Lindsay talking about the crocodiles, not anything of them having to sing. And because the crocs are still all around, and I don't think anyone would notice Zeke feeding their stick to the croc, so he'd still end up losing their reward to a crocodile. Team Amazon would still struggle with getting the camel to move because they traded Izzy. Heather would mention how if it wasn't for that stupid swap they'd already be halfway across, but Duncan points out that she was the one who insisted they swap to try and prove she was leader worthy, causing their team to fight again. This makes Alejandro's decision to get Izzy to move the camel onto the boat make more sense, as originally he kinda just did it for honor or something, but now it could be to taunt them since he doesn't view them as a threat with their bickering. Since Ezekiel still fed Team Victory's stick to the crocs, when all teams make it to the other side, Chris still says the same thing about no elimination if everyone bought their items to the finish line. Team Victory asks for their stick back from Zeke, to which he awkwardly chuckles and admits he lost it. Team Victory becomes very mad at him, especially since he wasn't even part of their team, and Chris, seeing all the drama, starts to laugh uncontrollably, enjoying the drama created by Ezekiel. Chris starts to stroke his chin and says, "You know, with drama like that around, I think you've earned yourself a spot back in the game, homeschool." Ezekiel gets excited, asking what team he's on, and Chris says, well, it only makes sense that someone as great as him joins the most luxurious team of Team Victory. Ezekiel's smile quickly fades as he looks back to his angry team, and I don't think I really have to talk about the vote. It plays out basically the same as the original. It's obviously Zeke. Team Amazon's bickering for team leader would still happen with Courtney and Heather campaigning for themselves, with Gwen also getting in the mix and saying they don't need a team leader because, you know, she doesn't want either of them bossing her around. Courtney would look to Duncan asking for him to take her side, but Duncan instead takes Gwen, saying they don't need a leader right now because they're winning. Gwen would smile at Duncan, thankful for him taking her side to try and stop the drama, but Courtney is displeased and catches Gwen smiling at Duncan, making her even more mad. Chris would still make everyone go to the dining area of the plane while revealing they were going to Japan for the day's challenge. Harold would still annoy Chris and Chef about their cultural insensitivity, and Chef would cut open the doors, making everyone fall out. The only difference is that the cast wouldn't sing while they're falling out of the plane. Team Amazon would still bicker when talking about choosing one person for the first part of the pinball challenge. The only difference is that Courtney would be talking with Duncan about him taking Gwen's side on the plane, but before Duncan can even answer Courtney, Cody would step in to volunteer. And I have no reason to believe the volunteers for the other teams would change. It means Alejandro still goes for Team Chris, DJ still goes for Team Victory, and Chris still puts Sierra with Cody because, you know, he knows that being uncomfortable for Cody. Meaning it also plays out the same as the original, with Team Victory and Team Chris still even making the same videos as they did for the next part of the challenge. While Team Amazon is bickering about what they should do for their video, Courtney storms off while dragging Duncan by the ear, saying they have to have a talk. Gwen and Heather still storm off because they don't like each other, leading to Cody and Sierra still working together to make their video the same one as the original. Courtney pulls Duncan into a nearby room, with Duncan holding his ear from discomfort. Courtney angrily asks him why he's taking Gwen's side, and Gwen says it's not personal, he just agrees with her idea. Courtney asks why he doesn't think his own girlfriend should be the team leader, and Duncan retorts saying Miss Courtney is already bossing around their relationship, so he doesn't want to have to also deal with it on the team. Courtney says she doesn't think that's the real reason, and she's noticed he's always keeping an eye out for Gwen and hearing her out. Duncan asks if she's accusing him of something, and Courtney asks if there's something to accuse him of. Duncan decides to let off a little, as he obviously doesn't like Courtney entertaining this idea, and apologizes if he made her feel like he didn't care about her, and if she really wants to be the leader, he couldn't care less, so he'll support her on that from here on out. Courtney takes a second but drops the anger and kisses Duncan on the cheek while thanking him. Duncan has a confessional saying hopefully that will get her off his case for a minute, and this team is already starting to be a pain in his, but the confessional ends before he can finish his sentence. Courtney has a confessional following Duncan's, saying it was sweet of him to apologize, but she knows that there is something more going on between Gwen and him, and she won't let it slide. All the videos for the challenge are still the same, so Team Amazon wins like the original, and Team Victory still loses. And Alejandro still talks to Harold after the challenge, convincing him to quit, so at the elimination, he still does. The episode was story of Courtney loudly campaigning for herself as team leader in first class, with Duncan by her side. I see this being reminiscent of her audition tape, repeating vote for Courtney, although it'd be much more demanding and annoying. Beforehand, Gwen was resting in the first class chair, and awoke to Courtney's chants, irritated. Gwen tells her to quiet down, saying they already talked about this yesterday and they don't need a team leader. Gwen tries to plead to Duncan to take her side since he agreed with her yesterday, but he looks to the side and doesn't respond because he doesn't want to make Courtney mad. Gwen responds really, upset at Duncan switching sides, making Gwen get up and leave in a huff. Heather also gets up from her chair, displeased with Courtney's promotion, telling her that she doesn't get to be the leader for being the most annoying. Courtney responds true, but democracy bids in her favor, seeing that Duncan is voting for her, and it seems really unlikely that Heather would get anyone on her side. Heather tries to argue back, but Courtney shushes her and tells her that as active team leader, Courtney suggests, no, demands, that Heather keeps her pretty lips shut, and walks away smugly. Heather tries to have a confessional, but when Gwen stormed off, she went into the confessional bathroom, and she blocked the door. Heather continues to try and get the door open for a bit before just saying her piece outside the door, complaining about Courtney's bossiness, saying Heather will find a vote for her. Gwen agrees with Heather about Courtney's bossiness, but when Heather then asks Gwen if she can count on her vote, Gwen responds with no chance. Heather, agitated, says whatever, just flush yourself down already, and walks away. The plane would still stop and everyone would fall out the door. The only difference is Gwen would be pulled out of the confessional booth and dropped out the door by Chef. Gwen sarcastically thanks Chef for being gentle while rubbing her side from pain. Cody talks up Gwen, saying he really agrees with her idea that they don't need a team leader. Gwen appreciates him taking her side, asking if he'd be willing to vote with her. Cody asks what side he'd be voting for, and Gwen says no leader, so anarchy. Cody chuckles and says that sounds perfect. Gwen mentions they need another person on their side with them to have the majority, and Cody nervously says he knows a girl while pointing at Sierra. Gwen asks if he really thinks he can get her to agree, and Cody confidently says he can make it work for her. Gwen smiles and thanks him for his help. Chris explained the challenge would go the same, except when the group starts to huddle with people for warmth, Cody would eye Gwen while nudging him towards Sierra. Cody is hesitant for a bit, but eventually offers to huddle with Sierra, which Sierra instantly agrees with, pulling him for a tight hug. During the first part of the challenge of people crossing the ice lake, Gwen would still get stuck on the ice platform that's breaking into two halves, but before she falls in, Duncan jumps onto her platform and saves her. Duncan tries to playfully tell her to be careful, and Gwen responds coldly, saying she will. Duncan asks if she's really still mad at him, and she reiterates that he took her side just to change his mind a day later, so yeah, she's not very happy, and she continues in the challenge. Courtney jumps to Duncan's ice platform, asking him what that was. Duncan responds saying that Gwen's on their team, and her freezing slows them all down, so he was just looking out for the team. Courtney tells him to leave the worrying about the team to her, and he just needs to support his girlfriend to help the team. Cody would still fall into the ice lake, and Sierra would save him, but he's severely frozen, so he wouldn't be able to tell Sierra about his plan to support Gwen for no leader. Because Courtney had to stop to have her talk with Duncan, Heather would make it to the sled at first and be forced to pull for the team. Heather would get annoyed asking why she's being punished for being first, and Courtney tells her to think of it as a good opportunity to prove her worth to the leader, while whipping her to get Heather to move it. I also think Duncan would have been traveling with Courtney, so they both would have been here for this, and they would have repaired their bond a bit over the abuse of Heather. Duncan tossing Courtney the hat saying it suits the leader, telling her she looks cute with it on. But Courtney doesn't like the cute compliment, saying she'd much rather prefer to be called diplomatic, or contemporary, making Duncan roll his eyes. Sarah would still follow Cody, and Cody would try to tell her about the plan now, but because he's freezing, he would only be able to spit out Gwen, before Sierra tells him to stop worrying about her, and picks him up over her shoulder, telling them they should continue in the challenge. I see this happening because Sierra as a superfan would definitely be aware of Cody's first season crush on Gwen, so hearing him talk about her makes her jealous. Team's Amazon sled would still go around and collect the rest of their team, and they'd obviously run into Bridget stuck on the pole because all that for Alejandro would still happen. And since there's no songs, they wouldn't have to stop to sing with Bridget. I did consider that Duncan might want to stop, since him and Bridget were fairly close on Island, at least he and Jeff were, and since Bridget is his girlfriend, that would extend to her, but they aren't super close, and given all the drama that's already happening on the team, I think Duncan would view it as too risky to create more waves trying to help Bridget, so they would just ride past her. Courtney would maybe gloat towards Bridget for getting stuck on the pole, and Duncan would be unhappy with that, telling Courtney that she was once friends with Bridget, but Courtney just rolls her eyes saying that was when she was on the same team with her. Now as team leader, it's crucial she does everything to help their team. Because all teams finish within seconds of each other, Team Amazon not having to stop and sing could allow them to take the win, but there's a couple factors that stop them from doing so. Like originally Courtney was the one pulling the sled, but now it's Heather, and I think Courtney is much stronger and faster than Heather. Not saying that Heather is necessarily weak by any means, but she's also doing this in heels, so it's fair to say she would be slower. Also, Heather would have to pull away of an extra person in Duncan, who wasn't here originally, so I think that about evens out with Team Amazon's saved time by not having to sing, so there would still be the near finish of all the teams crossing the finish line, with Team Chris coming first, Team Victory coming second, and Team Amazon last. Courtney and Heather would have a mini fight with Courtney complaining about Heather going too slow, and Heather telling her she could have pulled faster if she wasn't being whipped. But their fight is cut off short by Chris informing them that they didn't lose since Team Victory is missing Bridget. After the challenge, Heather would talk with Sierra trying to convince her of joining her side of the vote as team leader, since Heather knows Gwen hates her too much and Cody is too much of a kiss-ass to Gwen to go against her, so she can't convince either of them to vote with her, so Sierra is her best bet. Besides, Heather, especially early on, had a lot of scenes talking about and executing work to befriend Sierra since she was a newbie, so Heather figured she could create a good bond with her because, literally everyone else on the cast hates her. Sierra is adverse of the idea, but Heather insists it's the best for both of them. Sierra curiously and sarcastically asks how Heather being team leader helps Sierra. Heather thinks about it for a second before saying if Heather becomes team leader, then anytime the group has to split into pairs, she'll pair Sierra with Cody. Sierra instantly obsessed on the idea of spending more time with Cody alone, and eagerly agrees to Heather's terms, viciously shaking her hand. And as for the vote, it's obviously still Bridget because poll, slow down, lost team, you get it. The episode would start with Gwen grinning in a confessional, saying she's been letting Courtney continue her power trip for all of yesterday, so she can rub that smug look off hers and Heather's face when she reveals that she got enough votes against them. Courtney complains about being in economy class, telling the team they have got to be working harder. Gwen smirks about to reveal to Courtney that Sierra and Cody are on her side to overthrow, but before she can, Heather butts in and comments against Courtney, calling herself team leader, saying she has a vote of her own, pointing at Sierra. Gwen is shocked, but before she can say anything, Courtney stands up to get in Heather's face, asking if she can count because she only has a tied vote, and tied votes don't overthrow previously established leaders. Sierra joins in on the conversation on Heather's side, using her extensive knowledge as a superfan to note that historically Heather's teams have always done better than Courtney's, noting that in the first season the Killer Bass only came into the merger of 4 people compared to the Screaming Gophers 6. Courtney says if they're basing it off that metric, then in action her team Killer Grips went into the merger of 4 versus the Screaming Gophers that went in with 3. Sierra agrees with those numbers but says Izzy and Courtney were added to the team later, meaning the Killer Grips lost more people in total. Courtney gets annoyed saying she wasn't even part of that team for most of the season, and Sierra mumbles under her breath that proves her lack of initiative to follow the suitcase in the water to get there in the first place. Courtney growls at Sierra, but Duncan breaks up the fight, getting in between them, telling Courtney that she led yesterday, so it's only fair that Heather gets a chance today. Besides, if they were to lose, then they would know who's going to get voted out. Courtney isn't happy, but lets Duncan pull her away, and Heather's smirk fades a bit when she realizes her game is on the line, but Sierra cheers her friend up, reminding her that she's a fully capable leader and she has nothing to worry about. Gwen watching Sierra be friendly with Heather causes her to confront Cody, upset, asking why he didn't convince Sierra to join them. Cody nervously says, making Gwen annoyed and storms off. Cody has a confessional, realizing he completely forgot to ask Sierra to join Gwen's side, asking if anyone can blame him since his mind is distracted on his stalker, but remembers that this issue is relating to his stalker, making him sigh and say he's gotta make it up to Gwen. There is some minor stuff after that, like I could very well see Team Victory since they're sharing economy class with Team Amazon because Team Chris won last challenge, poking fun at Courtney for her outburst, causing Courtney to relentlessly make fun of them for losing every challenge. Duncan has a confessional feeling a bit bad for not stopping her for going off of Team Victory, but if he did then that anger would have been directed at him, so it's only fair that everyone gets their share of Courtney rage. This would would add the team's victory motivational speech, since now they'd be more determined to win with Courtney's comments in their mind. Also, Alejandra would still bring food from first class to give to the ladies, and figure out that Heather is trying to get Sierra on her side because she's close with Chris. Heather, as team leader for Amazon, would decide the order in which the team climbs up the Statue of Liberty. Heather would let Sierra go first to prove to her that Heather is on her side, and with that she'd have Cody go next so Sierra and Cody are nearby, and I think that she'd put Gwen after just so that she can be in front of Gwen and Courtney going last because she wants payback for last episode. While Team Amazon is climbing, Cody would try apologizing to Gwen for forgetting about their deal, but Gwen has an angry look on her face, ignoring Cody's comments, telling him to quiet down, especially since they're somewhat near Heather. Cody continues trying to insist that it's important to him that she knows he's sorry, and Gwen just replies that maybe they can have this conversation when they can keep eye contact, referring to the fact that she's below him, so she's kinda just seeing his ass. Cody tries to lean to the side to look towards Gwen so he can apologize, but while leaning to the side, he falls over in the breast area of the Statue of Liberty. Sierra panics watching Cody fall in, wanting to scale down to save him, trying to kick Gwen down more, but Heather tells Sierra to calm down since there's nothing she can do from up there, and she should just continue going up while the rest of the team gets him. Sierra is hesitant but realizes Heather's right, so she continues climbing. Duncan chuckles at the sight, asking Cody how's the weather in there. Courtney is unamused at Duncan's childish humor, telling him to be an adult. Duncan responds whatever, before noticing Heather is trying to climb past Cody, asking her where she's going. Heather responds that she told Sierra the rest of the team would get Cody, not herself. She's a team leader and is obviously needed up there. Courtney scolds Heather's leadership, telling her it's barbaric to leave your team behind. Heather says she isn't leaving Cody behind, she's just assigning them to do it instead. Then she points out that Cody is starting to slip, making Duncan and Courtney work to get him out, while Heather smirks and continue. During this roadblock, Alejandro would still find time to tell Sierra that he worries that Chris is feeling unappreciated, and yeah, that would still start to make Sierra over-compliment Chris about his past stuff and embarrass him, and then, lose favor at Chris. It's possible that Gwen would notice this since she isn't distracted of helping Cody, but given the previously mentioned dislike towards Gwen, Sierra would just go off on Gwen saying she doesn't appreciate Chris either, and it's a crime to the world, making Gwen very confused. I think with Team Amazon having much more fighting and time spent helping Cody, and Team Chris having to pull Owen up, Team Victory would actually be able to take the early lead, especially since DJ was able to quickly get the baby carriage. Don't know who Heather would make walk to get the baby carriage, since originally she did it to prove her worth to the team, but now that she's the team leader, I don't think she'd be too worried about that. She'd probably choose Duncan, making Courtney angry, saying she's just choosing him to spite Courtney, but Heather says he's just more nimble than the rest of them, being a criminal and all. Duncan, not wanting to slow down the team anymore fighting, agrees to go get the baby carriage, and does it with minimal difficulty. Courtney would get to the driver's seat of the motorboat first, but Heather would insist that the team leader gets to drive. During this scuffle, Cody would again try apologizing to Gwen, to which she still ignores, even covering her ears to block him out. Sierra would get annoyed with Duncan, Courtney, and Gwen's fighting, and push them all out of the way as she drives. But like Courtney in the original, she accelerates too quickly at the beginning, and Cody goes flying off the back of the boat, making Gwen drop her angry act and tell the team to go back for Cody, as a result causing Team Amazon to fall to last. And the team's placements for the first part are the same as the original. Team Victory first, Team Chris second, and Team Amazon last. Because there's no song now, Team Victory would actually be able to get an early lead to the turtle pond, since they had the shortest path and only fell behind because LaShawna's dancing, but LaShawna wouldn't dance now because they wouldn't be singing. Team Chris and Team Amazon would still arrive at basically the same time, where Tyler would jump in for his team and Sierra for hers. Heather still confronts Alejandro about making Sierra ruin her favorable advantage of Chris, and she'd switch his baby carriage as payback. Gwen asks Cody if he's alright since she was worried about him falling off the boat a while ago. Cody says with a grin he's fine, and he's just happy to see she still isn't mad at him, getting a nervous look before checking in to see if she is still mad at him. Gwen apologizes and says she was never mad at him, this team has just been a lot recently, but she appreciates him trying to help. Cody chuckles saying he's sorry he couldn't have been more helpful, and it seems like Heather and Courtney are just going to keep going at it. Gwen's eyes light up, giving her a smirk, saying she has an idea, but before she can reveal it, Duncan pokes fun at Cody for being in the baby carriage, asking if he needs Duncan to go get him a pacifier. Gwen gets mad at this comment, telling Duncan to back off, and Duncan scratches his head confused as Gwen walks back over to Cody. Because Team Victory got an early lead, I think they would actually be able to win the challenge since the end was originally a very close finish. I mean, Team Chris originally got there before Team Victory and Team Amazon, but they had to go back because Heather switched out the carriages, and Heather still did that, so they still would. Team Victory would be excited to win their first challenge, as LaShawna rubs it in Courtney's face for underestimating them this morning. Courtney and Duncan just roll their eyes at this comment, not really caring. Team Victory would still receive the prizes, with not much changing. Lindsay would open the big apple of candy in it, LaShawna would open the one of apples, unamused at the joke of small apples and a big one, and DJ would open the last apple of the meat grinder. Chris would make a small joke saying the grinder is sure to help DJ quicken the process in hurting animals. This makes DJ slouch as LaShawna picks up the meat grinder upset, saying that's a cruel joke and about to throw it out of the plane. Chris warns her against it, saying it could prove useful in a later challenge, but LaShawna doesn't listen and throws it out anyway, saying the usefulness is probably just to get Chris a good laugh. LaShawna grabs DJ's hands, leading him to first class to try and cheer him up, with Lindsay following after. Not a single thing would change this aftermath. All the same people got eliminated, all the same team dynamics are here. They wouldn't talk about Duncan going missing after his elimination because he didn't get eliminated and he's still on the show. And maybe they would mention Team Amazon's fighting for a team leader, but besides that, this aftermath remains completely the same. The episode would start with Gwen leaning over to Cody, whispering to ask if he remembers her telling him she has a plan in the last challenge. Cody whispers back saying he remembers and asks her what it was. Gwen smiles and tells him to just follow her lead. Gwen Gwen then stands up in front of the team, asking what the ideas for team leaders are now that Heather and Courtney have both had their chance to showcase themselves. Heather says they should hold a vote for permanent leader now. Courtney interjects saying that's not fair yet, since Heather is the only reason that Courtney wasn't able to lead their team to victory during her reign, because she couldn't pull the sled quick enough. Gwen shushes them and says before they stress about it too much, Gwen would like to offer somebody else into contention. Heather chuckles saying that's adorable, but she doesn't think the world is ready for a witch as leader yet. Gwen says she isn't the one running. She pulls up Cody to a standing position by his arm, offering him as their next leader. There's a noticeable pause for a few seconds before Heather, Courtney, and Duncan all burst out laughing. Duncan is the first to regain his composure, but still with a heavy grin asks if Gwen is serious about having Statue of Boob Face lead in the victory. Gwen stands her ground saying Cody's the only reason they won the Japan Challenge, taking a leader-like initiative to single-handedly lead them to victory. Something Courtney and Heather, who both had entire challenges to lead their team through, couldn't succeed at. Besides, Courtney and Heather are both elected as temporary leaders through a majority vote. She's voting for him, and Gwen turns to Sierra, telling her she has to want to see Cody in charge of the team. Sierra is tentative, with Heather trying to convince Sierra to not switch, but the idea of Cody in charge breaks Sierra, and she agrees to vote for Cody. Duncan has a confessional saying he doesn't care what the group decided. There is no way he can seriously take orders from Cody, and the only reason Gwen is doing this is because she's trying to get back at Duncan for him siding with Courtney. Since this is all happening in economy class, Team Chris would be watching this conversation, and they would start to butt in and laugh at the team for being dysfunctional, and voting Cody as their leader. Similar to how they were making fun of Team Victory originally. And like the original, Owen would still do the ballerina dance on the plane, making the plane have turbulence because fat joke, and Owen would fly into a wall and break a hole into it, causing everyone to panic at flying around. Nothing really changes here. Team Amazon would just be the ones instead to close up the hole, but since DJ isn't here for the seagull to fly to and get attached to, now that wouldn't happen. Instead, I now see it happening to Izzy, as she has a very natural connection with animals. I mean, I could see it attaching to Alejandro maybe, but this isn't really an important detail anyway, so I prefer to give it to Izzy. Team Victory would be relaxing in first class, except for DJ, who would still be sulking over his animal curse. Lashana and Lindsay would cheer him up, insisting that the animal curse is only as real as he makes it, and Lindsay tries feeding him some first-class chocolate, which DJ eventually opens his mouth to accept with a smile. Lashana says it's great to see his smile again, and she plans to keep it there, saying they can keep on winning as long as they stay focused. No more animal curse talk, and no more distractions. Lindsay and DJ nod their heads, and the entire team does a Go Team Victory chant. Because there's no singing, the first part of the challenge of everyone getting thrown on the mountain and being told to not sing too loudly would still happen just without a song. However, Lindsay remembering Tyler here had nothing to do with the words said in the song, it was just her simply looking at Tyler for a bit longer. So Lindsay would remember Tyler, and Tyler would still scream for joy, causing the avalanche. I imagine there's also some minor stuff, like Duncan would have a taunt towards Cody saying this is a good time for him to lead the team and show them how to walk as faintly as he does, and Izzy would still have her seagull to show off to her team, which Owen takes an interest in, and Noah backs away from it, not wanting a disease. The teams would eventually climb up to the meat grinders, and Chris would explain the next part of the challenge, and the teams would begin. DJ apologizes to his team for getting paranoid about the meat grinder they won in New York, but Lashana takes the blame instead, saying she's the one who threw it out. There's no use crying over it now, and they just have to focus up. Lashana assigns roles to the team, and while she's assigning them, Lindsay is waving towards Tyler, who is flexing to her, making Lindsay giggle. This prompts Lashana to give Lindsay's hand a little slap, telling her she's got to focus up. Lindsay is bummed, but Lashana encourages Lindsay, saying she's welcome to flirt from later, and Team Victory does a chant again, making Chris exclaim in awe, thinking it's cute that Team Victory thinks they have a chance. Because DJ wasn't in economy class, the seagull wouldn't have attached to him, but because of his animal curse, I still think Izzy's seagull would fly over to him and he would accidentally shovel the seagull into the team's meat grinder, making Izzy extremely mad at DJ. Courtney smirks at the meat grinder, beginning to assign roles for her team, but Cody cuts her off, reminding her that he's the team leader. Duncan laughs, causing Cody to ask what he's laughing so hard about. Duncan wipes a tear that formed on his eye from laughing so hard, and says it's just hilarious to hear him try and project his voice, and he's praying for him that a voice crack doesn't damage his vocal cords. Cody has had enough of Duncan's taunting of him, and demandingly assigns Sierra on the crank, Heather shoveling the meat on top, Duncan and Gwen shoveling the meat up to Heather, and Courtney to making sure the meat enters the sausage casing properly. The group starts to argue with his assignments, as Heather doesn't want to touch the meat, Courtney doesn't like her skills being wasted on holding a sausage casing, and even Gwen doesn't want to work with Duncan. But Sierra screams at the team, telling them to fall in line or fall off the mountain, and this crazy outburst scares the team as everyone falls into position. Duncan tries to start a conversation with Gwen as they shovel the meat, asking if she ever thought they'd be here. Gwen, bothered by Duncan, dismissively replies not really, and Gwen says him making fun of Cody isn't helping. Duncan chuckles, saying he knows she's just trying to get him in leadership position to spite him, and Gwen quickly stops shoveling and gets in Duncan's face, saying not everything is about him all the time, and just because he's firmly up Courtney's butt doesn't mean everyone else is, and Gwen thinks Cody would actually make a great leader for the team. She continues shoveling, mumbling under her breath that at least he might stop all the conflict. Heather would still be grossed out about pushing the meat into the grinder, with Cody asking why she's going so slow. Heather complains that it's his fault for assigning positions poorly, and she shouldn't be near the grinder because it's dangerous. Cody grins and tells her that's exactly why she's there, because she's the most valuable member, so he trusts her not to get hurt. Heather looks mad, but once Cody walks off, she gets a grin of her own. Heather has a confessional revealing she's intentionally going slow, because if their team does poorly in the challenge, then Cody will be to blame because he's the leader. Besides, Besides, the only reason they didn't come first in the last challenge Heather was leader in was because of Cody falling behind and making the team go back for him. So this is just Heather's way of repaying the favor. Because Cody assigned Sierra to the crank and Sierra would eagerly listen because she likes taking instruction from Cody, she wouldn't have time to make meat Cody, meaning Team Amazon would have enough meat to fully make their sausage. However, because of Heather intentionally going slow at pouring meat into the grinder, I still think they would come last in the sausage race as the other teams would go down the hill before them. Heather and Cody would try to bully Cody into wearing the penalty hosen since he was the one assigning the rolls on the grinder that caused him to come in last. And Cody sighs while agreeing for a second before Duncan steps in and says he'll do it. Everyone is shocked as Chris grins from ear to ear, giggling while asking if he's really sure because they look like they'd be pretty tight on him. Duncan walks up and tears them out of Chris's hand saying he's sure, while walking past Cody who's praying with his hands and wording a thank you to Duncan. And he walks past Gwen who's smiling at him. Courtney has a confessional angry and confused at why Duncan protected Cody since he said he wants Courtney as leader, and especially because it required him wearing those German boy clothes. The rest of the challenge plays out the same with the dance fighting. Duncan is here on Team Amazon, but we're watching this part, it looks like whoever Chris threw the hats to competed in the challenge. Since Team Amazon let Cody compete in a fighting challenge over Courtney or Gwen, and Team Chris let Noah compete in the fighting challenge over Tyler or Izzy. And both of those decisions make no sense to me, unless it was a choice they didn't have, because Chris just threw the hats to them. So even though Duncan is here, Cody, Heather, and Sierra would still be throwing the hats and still compete, meaning Team Victory loses when Lashana jumps off after Heather to slap her, and Team Amazon wins thanks to Sierra. After the challenge on the plane, Cody finds Duncan and profusely thanks him for saving Cody from wearing the hosen. Duncan tells him not to mention it before reiterating, seriously, don't mention it. Cody asks why he did it, and Duncan admits that he doesn't respect Cody, but he might be the best leader for the team. Heather is intolerable, and Courtney bosses Duncan around enough, so he's open to Cody being the leader, but that doesn't mean he's going to be voting for him anytime soon. Cody says that's fine, and he appreciates his support either way, and again thanks him for taking the hosen, saying he would have died if Gwen saw him in those. Duncan's surprised asks Cody what he means about Gwen, and Cody admits he feels like he's winning her over, saying it's obvious by how much she's pushing him specifically to be leader. Duncan says he thought Cody gave up on Gwen after Island, and Cody admits he did, but since Gwen and Trent broke up, he decided to shoot his shot again. Cody then walks off as Duncan has a concerned look on his face. And because Team Victory still lost, the vote-off is still played the same. Goodbye, Lashana. I see it making even more sense in this world, as Lashana was the one preaching to DJ and Lindsay to not get distracted during the challenges, but she ended up causing them the challenge by getting distracted and jumping off to chase Heather. So I could definitely see Lindsay being sour about not getting time for Tyler, and Lashana spent it on Alejandro and being mad at Heather. The episode was story of Heather looking at her black eye from Lashana yesterday in a mirror, with people like Gwen, Duncan, and Courtney snickering at it. Heather asks what they're laughing about because she's the reason they won the challenge yesterday. Gwen admits that's true and says she couldn't think of a better way for her to help the team. Heather shakes with rage but calms herself down, saying she clearly should get another attempt at being the team leader then. Courtney says that's not fair and suggests to use a rotating system until the team can decide on a leader, meaning Courtney would be today's leader, then Heather, and then Cody again. Gwen touches them and says neither of those are going to happen, and they agree that whoever has the majority vote is the leader, and Cody still has the majority, so he's still a leader. Unless, of course, one of them would be willing to vote for each other as leader. And Gwen laughs at the idea of that possibly happening and walks away. Courtney gets a sour look on her face and goes to follow Gwen, saying she doesn't get to walk away without talking about this more, but Duncan stops Courtney and says maybe it's for the best. Courtney instantly gets aggressive, asking what he means by that, and if he really thinks Cody will make a better leader than her. Duncan says he doesn't, but as long as he's around, Gwen and Sierra will always vote for him over her, so they should just let Cody be the leader until he eventually fails the team, and then they can vote him out. And the only options between leader are her and Heather, at which point Duncan is sure they can convince them to vote for Courtney over Heather. Courtney is surprised by his thinking and says she loves it when he goes out of his way to help her out, and gives him a kiss on his cheek. Duncan has a confessional saying this is a perfect win-win situation for him. Courtney isn't mad at him, Gwen stays happy with Cody as leader, and Cody finds himself on a free ticket ride off this plane when they lose. Duncan says that's what he deserves for getting involved with, but stops himself from revealing he doesn't like the idea of him and Gwen getting close, and instead says it's just best for the team if he goes because he's the weakest. Gwen would still mention how it looks lucky for their team because they're going to the Amazon and they're Team Amazon, except now Cody would stick by Gwen's side, telling the team it's ridiculous to actually think Gwen gave them bad luck. This wouldn't really help Gwen's case because I see Courtney going extra hard to try and guilt Gwen because of Duncan's plan. The cast would still land in the Amazon and the challenge would begin, and at the left-right turn in the challenge, Team Amazon would still go right. Because Cody is their leader, he could have the final say that the team should go left, especially because he seemed to be leaning left in the original, but because he's trying to back up Gwen and reassure that there's no bad luck, then he would agree with Gwen to go right, and Team Amazon would still be taken by the Zing-Zings. Gwen would still go searching in Cody's pockets for batteries to put in the walkie-talkie, and Duncan would have a Bowery look on his face, but doesn't comment on it since it makes sense for Gwen to do so. Gwen would still get stabbed with Cody's EpiPen, but they wouldn't have to sing anymore because, obviously. I still don't see Chris being any help for the walkie-talkie, causing Heather to curse Chris out for leaving them, and this cursing out would allow the Zing-Zings to see her missing tooth and still think of her as a god and free her from the ropes. From here I don't see much changing. I do think it's possible that after Gwen passes out from the adrenaline rush caused by the EpiPen injection, that Duncan would strive to get them out more to help her. Courtney would notice his increase in motivation once Gwen passes out, but doesn't comment on it. And we've seen Duncan many times in the show carry a pocket knife, so I think he would would get Courtney to get it from his back pocket, and they would cut the rope and slowly back away from the Zing Zings and Heather to make an escape. But this doesn't change the end result, as Chef would still come in and reveal the Zing Zings are just actors, and the challenge would end. You might notice I didn't talk about the other teams during the challenge, and that's because there's no reason for any of that stuff to change at all, so it would still play out with Team Victory winning the challenge. After the challenge, Heather thinks back to what Gwen said at the beginning of the episode about her side having the numbers to keep Cody as leader. Heather would be smart enough to realize the only way she can have a chance at being leader is to work with Courtney against them. So Heather would find Courtney and make an offer of a temporary alliance until they remove Cody as a leader option, so they can then go back to fighting one-on-one for that position. Courtney, being very stubborn, is again to working with Heather, saying she doesn't need her help and she's hardly friended by Cody, especially after he blew the challenge today. Heather tells Courtney that Cody isn't her target and Gwen is the one pulling all the strings against him, and if she were to go, then Cody would probably just give up trying to be team leader, as he's clearly just doing it from Gwen's command. And because Courtney is not a fan of how close Gwen and Duncan are, Courtney agrees to the plan but asks who else they can get on board, with Heather mentioning that Sierra isn't a fan of Gwen either, so Heather's sure she can get her to vote against Gwen. Courtney smirks, saying she likes the way Heather thinks, and shakes Heather's hand to the temporary alliance, with both of them saying they agree to work together until Cody is a complete non-threat for potential leader, but both of them are crossing their fingers behind their backs, showing they obviously might want to get rid of each other first because they're the bigger threats here. They don't really view Cody as an issue. Now comes the vote. This is a non-elimination round, but Chris reveals everyone's votes to the group at the end, so the votes are still important to discuss as they will change the team's dynamic a fair bit. First off, Heather and Courtney would be shown voting for Gwen. Heather isn't much of a shock, but Courtney gets a very surprised and angry reaction from Duncan and Gwen, because I think Courtney would have said in the confessional that she had to leave Duncan in the dark on this vote, because he could have caused a tie if he knew. Speaking of Duncan, he'd be revealed voting for Heather, as even though he had planned to vote out Cody, I think after today of Heather basically siding with the Zing Zings, he would want her gone more. Besides, Gwen in the original was shown after this challenge to be trying to recruit votes against Heather, so I could definitely see her bringing this to Duncan and persuading Duncan to vote that way also, because Duncan might think she's in danger because Gwen cost the team the challenge. Gwen is shown voting Heather to no one's surprise. Sierra would talk in her voting confessional about how Heather approached her with the offer of voting Gwen, but Sierra would rather get rid of Heather. I think Sierra would vote this way because Sierra displays an awareness, especially early on into the season, that Heather is just using her, and in turn Sierra plays along because she says she's, quote, the one playing Heather. So given that she's aware Heather is just using her, especially in this competitive setting as a vote for team leader, Sierra would have less reason to work with Heather, given that she's trying to advocate for herself as team leader, which in turn means she's going against Cody. And even though voting out Gwen is an appetizing idea to Sierra, if she were to actually succeed in getting rid of Gwen, then Cody wouldn't have the majority vote anymore, which means he's not leader anymore, which would bump Sierra out. Heather would glare at Sierra when this voting confessional is revealed, and Sierra would nervously chuckle at it being publicly revealed. Then, last but not least, Cody would be revealed voting for Sierra, as I still think he'd be too creeped out by her stalking to vote anybody else. He kinda needs her vote to stay as leader. Cody could think of Duncan taking a bullet for him last challenge by wearing the tight German clothes that Cody could convince Duncan to vote for him as leader. It's kind of a big stretch, but I think Cody would be desperate enough to get Sierra out that he could still justify that as a reason to himself. This means Heather got the majority of the votes, but again, this is not an elimination round, so she wouldn't be eliminated. I see mostly everything pre-challenge still playing out the same. Team Victory enjoying first class, Izzy taking over the plane of Chef, Sierra being sad about Cody voting for her. The only addition I can think of is Duncan giving Courtney the silent treatment because he's angry about her lying to him yesterday. She tries to nicely get him to talk, but gives up and says he's acting childish. Gwen defends Duncan, saying the whole team can use a break from her phoniness, and at least Heather doesn't hide it. Courtney is insulted to be compared to Heather, but before they can argue more, Izzy flips the plane and the cast goes into the Louvre and starts a challenge. During the challenge, Gwen, Courtney, and Duncan are still mad at each other, not being extremely difficult so far, but they aren't very focused on the challenge. Cody still gets assigned to fix Sierra because her crying is annoying and slowing down the team. I see Cody fighting more to stay with the team since he's still their self-appointed leader, but Heather tells him to shut it, and if he wants to be a helpful leader, then he will get Sierra's head back in the game. In different contexts, I could see Gwen trying to defend Cody here, but I think she's already got her hands full with the Courtney and Duncan fighting. Heather has a confessional saying she needs the team to win because yesterday showed her she's the one in trouble if they go to elimination again, but it's so hard working with these teenage babies and their drama. This team needs a Heather leader more than ever, and with Cody off working on Sierra, this is her time to get a grip on the team. Sierra wouldn't sing her song this episode now, but it doesn't really matter because it didn't add much, and just for the sake of giving them something to their plot, Cody could still find a way to take her outside on a mini date, or not, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, point is they're still away from the team anyways, and that's what they're going to be doing for the entire challenge. Duncan and Gwen would be seen glaring at Courtney, as Heather is struggling carrying all the pieces for the challenge and asks for a hand. Gwen apologizes, saying she can't because it would only make it that much easier for Courtney to stab her in the back. Courtney groans, sarcastically apologizing for voting like the show is designed to make her do. Duncan jumps in, asking if lying to him is also out of her control. Courtney feels guilty, trying to explain the show kinda does, making Duncan annoyed. Courtney gets defensive, saying he isn't so innocent either, seeing as he also lied to her when he told her to vote for Cody. Gwen is surprised to hear that Duncan was conspiring against Cody, since she believed that after Slap Slap Revolution that he was okay with Cody. Gwen asks him if that's true. Duncan doesn't want to lie to her and admits that he said that. Gwen angrily asks him why he would target Cody, and Duncan attempts to carefully explain that he knows they are close, but he just doesn't think Cody can make a good leader. Heather and Courtney both agree, making Duncan smirk as they all make fun of the idea area, resulting in Gwen storming off from the group, saying she'll look for pieces on her own. Duncan feels bad for making Gwen storm off and runs after her, trying to apologize. Courtney also wants to follow them because she doesn't like Gwen getting an apology before her, and she still notices the attraction between them. But Heather pulls on Courtney before she can leave, saying she's not leaving Heather to do this challenge all by herself. Courtney asks how Heather is planning to stop her, and Heather explains if she were to get eliminated, then there's no way that Courtney could ever get the majority to swing off Cody for leader. Courtney's desire to be leader would cause her to begrudgingly agree with Heather and help her in the challenge. Duncan would catch up to Gwen trying to talk to her, but Gwen doesn't engage, saying she isn't giving him another chance to lie to her and make her believe him. Duncan tries to say he's sorry and suddenly grabs Gwen's arm. Gwen loudly tells him to let go. Duncan tries to shush her, but Gwen doesn't listen, pulling on her arm and walking backwards into a bear. Realizing that's why Duncan was trying to quiet her down, but it's too late once she bumps into it, making Duncan and Gwen run off with the bear chasing. I don't have a super clear idea of the layout in this museum, but we saw Team Chris going through lasers earlier, so I think Duncan would see the lasers and tell Gwen to follow him through there so the bear can't follow them. This isn't really based off anything super concrete, but it doesn't matter, it's just a way for them to escape, so you could revise this into anything else. You could say they hid behind a sculpture, you say they could be hidden in a different room, and it doesn't matter. I'm just using the lasers because it's the easiest thing I know that exists to visualize them in. Duncan quickly gets through the lasers with his criminal experience being nimble. Gwen sways a bit while going through, almost touching a laser. Duncan saves her, pulling her safely through, while the bear roars on the other side. Originally during this time, Team Amazon and Team Chris got back with all their statue pieces and get their team pieces mixed together. Since Team Amazon has significantly less people working and spent much more time fighting, I don't think they would be here yet, meaning Team Chris is able to finish much earlier because they don't have to deal with Team Amazon's pieces getting mixed with their own. I don't think this means they finish super early just because the team isn't exactly the smartest, but they would finish just as or slightly after both Team Amazon and Team Victory get back with their pieces, which is just Lindsay, Heather, and Courtney, as the rest of the members are all off doing their own thing. Duncan and Gwen would still be stuck behind the lasers as the bear impatiently taps its foot on the other side, waiting for them to come out. Gwen notes the bear seems to have a free schedule. Duncan sighs, apologizing for suggesting they go behind the lasers and effectively trapping them. Gwen says it wasn't his fault and at least they're safe. Duncan smiles at her and begins to apologize, but Gwen sees where he's going, about to apologize for targeting Cody, and asks Duncan if he wants her to go feed herself to the bear. Duncan backs off and decides to just leave it at saying he just wants her to know he feels bad about it and he didn't mean to hurt her. Gwen softens up a bit at him being genuine and asks why he really wanted to target Cody, since she knows him being a bad leader isn't the real reason, because there's no way he wants Courtney or Heather to be the leader more than Cody. Before Duncan can answer, DJ, while riding the go-kart like the original, drives by and gets the attention of the bear, making it chase him, and giving Duncan and Gwen the opportunity to escape, which they jump at. Courtney would be a bit worried about Duncan being gone for so long, while Heather is more annoyed by their absence, telling Courtney to keep a move on with helping her on the statue. Lindsay was very impressive in the original, making her team statue all alone and fairly quickly, but even if Lindsay could somehow beat Heather and Courtney in making a statue, it wouldn't matter because DJ was still crashing through their statue with all their animal curse stuff, so even if Lindsay could make her statue before Heather and Courtney, there's no way she can make it twice before Heather and Courtney can make it once. For sake of drama, you could say Lindsay was just about to finish before Heather and Courtney, but DJ crashing into it gives Team Amazon enough time to finish before her. Izzy would still catch DJ's Egypt dog and slam it on the ground. I like the idea of Izzy playing it as a joke, but she could also have a confessional after the fact mentioning that was payback for her seagull that DJ hurt in this episode. Duncan and Gwen would arrive after Team Victory lost, and Heather would scold them asking where they've been. Duncan and Gwen, out of breath, would explain that they were trying to avoid being a bear's dinner, and Courtney, displeased, asks if that's the bear, pointing at the one in the crash of Team Victory's statue. Duncan looks nervous as he admits that's the one, since he knows that it looks like they were lying now. Cody comes back with her still crying Sierra, as Heather demands to know where he's been and why it's been taking him so long. Cody says he doesn't know what she wants, he brought her outside on a date, she's still upset. He apologizes, she's still upset. Heather interrupts him, saying a team leader gets their team under control, and seeing as he clearly can't do it, he should stop getting in the way of people who can. This strikes a nerve of Cody, as even though he hasn't been too confident with being the leader, and just following along with Gwen, the way the team has been ignoring him as a leader for the past couple of challenges is making him annoyed that he's not even getting a chance to prove himself, and he tells Heather so. During this, Cody turns around and gives the same speech to Sierra about how today has sucked, and he's not used to her being like this, and he'd rather deal with the old her. In my opinion, this speech works better here, as originally this just came from him being annoyed today, but now his annoyance has been building up since Gwen made him take over as leader, and even though Sierra is, well, Sierra, she was someone supporting Cody all this time, so now losing her support anchor could definitely wear on him more to have this outburst-like speech to her. And like the original, Sierra hugs and forgives him. Because Team Victory still lost, yeah, Lindsay goes after failing in the fashion tiebreaker. I do think DJ chooses Duncan over Gwen, as I would argue he's even more fashion opposed than Gwen, since Gwen at least dresses up nicely into the goth look, but Duncan just dresses, well, like a delinquent. Even then, I still think DJ does the same thing of dressing Duncan in his shirt to be lazy, and ends up inadvertently winning the challenge because Lindsay did so badly. After the challenge, Gwen would be talking in the confessional, just generally speaking about the challenge, when Duncan walks in on her. Gwen is surprised, asking herself if she really forgot to lock the door, and Duncan reveals the lock is busted. Gwen blushes as Duncan scratches the back of his head and says he knows they got cut off earlier, but she was right about him not targeting Cody because he doesn't want him as leader, and he admits he was upset at all the time she was spending with him, and mostly how it was done to pit Cody against Courtney, and in turn against himself. But Duncan confesses that was a shitty thing to do, and given how Courtney turned her back on him, he was wrong to choose her over Gwen on this issue, and from now on he's on her side through thick and thin. Duncan holds her hand to punctuate that sentence. Gwen grins and says wearing DJ's clothes must have made his kindness rub off on him. Duncan smiles back and says he can be nice, or at least he can try for her. And they kiss. I see this all happening here because they obviously have a great interest in each other that was developed before this season, given they kissed each other within Duncan being back in the show for like 3 minutes originally, and I've been pushing it off mainly because of all the leader drama which pitted Gwen and Duncan against each other, avoiding the chance for this spark to happen. Now that Duncan's apologized and gone back on her side, I see this kiss happening. What I do struggle with a lot in this scene though, is figuring out if Tyler would still walk in on them. It's really hard to say because it's not like Tyler has a reason to constantly go in the bathroom after every challenge, it was just specifically in Icy London that he happened to be there. And at the end of any other challenge, I would probably lean to saying he wouldn't walk in here, but if you think about the right person to walk in for a confessional after today, Tyler is the ideal option, seeing as he just lost his girlfriend, Lindsay, at elimination. So I definitely think he'd want to be alone and talk about his feelings in there. The episode was story of Team Chris and First Class enjoying their time, all except for Tyler who's scraping his bowl with his spoon, creating a terrible screeching noise. Alejandro would notice Tyler's poor attitude and ask him what's wrong. Tyler has a confessional revealing that Duncan threatened him yesterday to not tell anyone what he saw, but he's terrible at keeping secrets and has been eating at him all night. And that plus losing his girlfriend, Tyler stops his train of thought with a blink of memory as the confessional ends and he's seen walking back to Alejandro, explaining that he's sad about Lindsay being gone, implying that he ran off when Alejandro initially asked what was wrong to come up with a fake answer because he's that bad of a liar. Alejandro raises his eyebrow at suspicious behavior, but I don't think Alejandro gets as suspicious as he does originally, since Tyler did just lose Lindsay and that's a perfectly reasonable excuse for his odd behavior, but Alejandro does feel a bit off by it all. Alejandro has a confessional saying it's probably not that important as he redirects his focus on recruiting DJ to his team as they need him on his side to keep a tie against Team Amazon come a merge. Team Amazon and Team Victory, or just better known as DJ, are an economy class. Team Amazon is whispering about getting DJ on their side in case of a merge, for the same reason as Alejandro to prevent them from getting a tie. Heather would stand up telling them to leave it to her, and Cody pulls her back into her seat saying the leader should be the one to invite him, plus she isn't exactly a trustworthy figure to be talking to him. Heather saying she has had way more experience inviting people into alliances, and Sierra sneakily adds on poorly. Heather scoffs and pushes Cody towards DJ and tells him to work his magic. Cody inhales confidently and walks towards DJ, taking a seat next to him, trying to bro it up with him. DJ is unresponsive until he eventually tells Cody he's wasting his time, as DJ is planning to lose the next challenge and go home. Cody tries to insist, but DJ remains firm, saying he refuses to stay here and harm any more innocent animals. Cody walks back to his team slightly defeated, as Heather gives him a sarcastic clap, but Cody defends himself, explaining that DJ was dead set on quitting, and Heather tells him to stop excusing his iffy work. Chris would make a water landing, and Chef would push everyone out of the plane. Because Team Chris was in First Class instead of Team Amazon, that means Alejandro would have the floating pillow that Heather originally tossed to DJ, and Alejandro has a comment to Heather after she throws her to DJ in the original that he would have waited to get DJ on his side before giving him the pillow. However, I don't see Alejandro doing this, as he's still been holding up his persona of being a nice guy, and if he publicly extorted DJ's life, a very lovable person, that cover would be blown. So Alejandro pauses for a second considering it, but he eventually tosses the pillow to DJ, saving him from drowning. Originally Heather joined DJ's boat in hope of getting him on her side, but now seeing that her team holds the majority, and DJ already revealed that he wants to quit, I don't think Heather would take this risk anymore. Seeing as the 6 of Team Amazon isn't a very solid 6, so I think Heather would view it as more important to stay with the team and establish her value. And Alejandro didn't help DJ because he knew Heather would take him to the challenge, but now that Team Chris needs DJ a lot more to hold the tie of Team Amazon, and Heather isn't helping DJ anymore, Alejandro jumped off his own team's boat to assist DJ, since Alejandro needs him to continue in the challenge to get the chance to persuade him to be on their side. Cody and Heather would be at the front of the boat talking over each other, causing Duncan to tell Heather to take a seat. Heather is shocked at Duncan taking Cody's side for leader, and Heather with a desperate undertone asks Courtney for a bit of help, since they still have a deal to go against Cody for leader. But Courtney agrees with Duncan, saying Cody seems confident enough, besides his shrimp arms wouldn't be great for paddling anyways. Courtney turns around for a smile to face Duncan, but Duncan quickly turns away, looking a bit guilty. Courtney has a confessional saying she feels a bit bad for lying to Duncan, and can admit this one and
and only time she was in the wrong. So she's taking a backseat on being the leader and devoting more time to being a supportive girlfriend. Duncan has a confessional following Courtney's, saying he sees what Courtney is trying to do taking his side, and he'd be lying if he said he doesn't feel bad for her, but she doesn't get to treat him like garbage for so long and then be somewhat supportive and expect him to forgive her. Heather is double shocked at Courtney going against their deal to not let Cody be the leader, but now seeing that the entire team wants Cody to be their leader, Heather realizes it's a losing battle and takes a seat begrudgingly, much to Cody's enjoyment. The lack of musical number in this episode doesn't change anything. DJ just wouldn't have the option to try and crit by not singing, but this does mean that Alejandro would probably avoid the ice caps that Heather ran into originally, as she ran into them because she was distracted trying to make DJ sing so he wouldn't get eliminated, but Alejandro wouldn't have to do that because, no song, he wouldn't have to waste his time trying to get DJ to sing. Instead, Alejandro, being his naturally charismatic self, would be able to effectively plead with DJ about the reasons he has to stay in the game, like if he won the $1 million, then he could spend it on animal shelters to make up for the damage he's done. Also, to make it up for his fallen allies who got eliminated instead of him, he at least owes it to them to try and win for the spot he took over them. Both are good pleas and get DJ thinking, but he's still on the fence about continuing, saying he just can't keep dealing with being the first-hand cause of animal cruelty, making Alejandro say, "I see," while looking off with a sinister grin. Team Chris about Alejandro, I think, would be very lost about his direction that they've leaned on so much on this season, causing Owen to ask where the line that pirates always use on the maps are. Noah explains those are just on maps and all they have to do is go straight. Owen asks what way that is, as Noah now notices that the boat is just going in a circle. He's confused how that could be happening until he sees that Tyler is meekly paddling the boat due to his stress, making Izzy the predominant rower on the other side and making the boat rotate endlessly. Noah angrily asks Tyler what's going on with him, and Owen jumps to Tyler's defense, saying he just lost his girlfriend, so they should give him a break. If he lost his Izzy, he would be bummed too. Izzy is seen dancing with the same large fish she caught originally during the song, but ends up tripping and falling into the ocean, with Noah sarcastically saying she's such a catch. Team Amazon has some issues fitting all of their team on the boat, namely because Cody is solely the one in front of the boat to captain. Heather, Courtney, and Sierra are all sharing the first row of seats, making them bump into each other, especially because Sierra and Courtney have to row, their arms are getting in the way, bumping into Heather. They bicker for a bit before Courtney sees an opportunity to continue being close with Duncan, and tosses her over to Heather, while taking a seat in the back row on Duncan's lap, flirtatiously asking him if he minds. Duncan has a nervous expression, but tells her he doesn't mind at all, which makes Glenn glare at him. I don't really know how Gwen would feel about the kiss with Duncan when it comes to Courtney. In the original, she was very guilty because she just kinda became friends with Courtney, but in this world she's been around Courtney and Duncan and seen the way she treats him, which I think is a big factor in making Gwen dislike Courtney and not feel as bad for her in this world. However, Gwen would still struggle with just cheating at all, as she genuinely tries to be a good person, and especially seeing Duncan continuing to engage with Courtney like a couple, makes Gwen have a confessional saying that's gotta stop. Alejandro and DJ would arrive to shore first, with Alejandro offering DJ his hand off the boat. DJ is still not excited to compete, but Alejandro tells him he left his team to help him out, so the least he can do is see what the next part of the challenge is. DJ sighs and agrees, just because at the very least he doesn't like being on water. Team Amazon's boat comes up to shore next, as Alejandro, irritated, asks where his team is. Team Chris is still lost at sea trying to figure out what way to continue, and given the extreme personalities of the team, I could see this being somewhat reminiscent of Castaways from Island, where Owen and Tyler have some rips in their clothes, and Owen is baking in the sun, asking how they've survived this long lost at sea, and Noah, who looks completely fine, says they've only been out for 20 minutes. Owen is surprised and asks what's up with Izzy then. Izzy is seen acting like a pirate and pretending she has a hook hand. Noah simply states that it would require a medical professional to find out what's up with her. Owen says they could really use Al about now, and Noah, similar to how he warned about Alejandro in London, tells the team they shouldn't be too reliant on him because he's not trustworthy. Owen and Tyler are shocked, asking what makes him think that, and Noah reveals that earlier he saw him hesitate to throw the pillow to DJ, and he's like Heather just with social skills to hide it, and has the same slippery ill comment. Pirate Izzy says slimy eels are wise to walk the plank back to the unforgiving sea they came from. The team fully stops the discussion, looking her extremely perplexed. Owen has a confessional questioning if Alejandro is really as slippery as Noah says, and his head is starting to spin from all this. Owen's gut is heard grumbling as he clarifies that it must have been his stomach, and uncooked seafood is better left to the pros. Tyler has a confessional slouch over, groaning, saying, "Ugh, another secret to keep." Back to the actual challenge. Team Amazon never found themselves competing in this challenge originally, so I have no way of knowing what people would compete in which part, so the best I could think of is to try and figure out what order the team would set at the table. I see Cody going in first since he's the team leader, and Sierra following shortly after. Then Duncan and Courtney go in together, holding hands, as Courtney is still trying to be affectionate with Duncan. Gwen follows after them since I could see her definitely wanting to glare down the situation with Duncan and Courtney, and Heather comes in last since she stayed back to confront Alejandro about what he's trying to do working with DJ, but Alejandro doesn't give her much, saying he's just trying to help out a lost soul. This means Alejandro and Sierra compete in the first part of chugging the apple cider vinegar, Duncan and Courtney compete in the second part of the challenge, and trying to decipher the Newfoundland phrase said by Chris's cousin. And this is kinda weird with both Gwen and Heather there, but I think Chris would just leave as either one of them has to kiss the fish, which obviously causes them to look at each other fighting about who will have to do it. The challenge would start, and I see Alejandro doing the same thing as Heather did to DJ, telling him the apple cider vinegar is cough medicine, and he has to chug it all to work. This does fall into a similar vein of earlier that Alejandro is trying to keep a good impression, and being deceitful here could hurt, heard that, but I think Alejandro could easily explain to DJ later that he was just trying to help him win and his intentions were pure. So DJ chugs, trusting Alejandro, and quickly finishes the first part. Then also finishes the second part where he mentions having to pee from the drink, inadvertently deciphering the phrase. Heather, seeing that DJ got pretty far ahead of them, panics since she doesn't know if this is an elimination round, but if it is, she is sure that she would go from their team. Also, DJ staying in the game longer when Alejandro's trying to get him on his side is very bad. So Heather starts pressuring Sierra and Cody to finish chugging. They both don't like her bossing, but Heather explains she isn't trying to be bossy, they just can't let DJ win because of what I said earlier about him joining Team Chris. Cody doesn't believe her, and Heather says she really just wants to help the team win, and to prove it, she will kiss the fish if they get to her. The team gasps at Heather accepting such humility, asking if she's sure, and Heather says yeah, and Duncan taunts her saying they're looking for more of an I do. Cody and Sierra, inspired by the idea of winning, and more so watching Heather kiss a fish, finish chugging the vinegar, allowing Team Amazon to move on to the next part. Duncan and Courtney are both at a loss for the first phrase, as DJ comes back from the bathroom and gets tossed his fish to kiss. DJ is very unsure about kissing the fish, as Alejandro shows him the Egyptian symbol, and suggests that it might be the end of his curse if he kisses it. DJ doubts Alejandro after he tricked him into chugging the vinegar, and Alejandro tells him he only wanted to help DJ stay in the game. But now this is bigger than just the both of them, he has to end this curse for the good of all animals. Heather panics and tells her team to hurry up, seeing Alejandro's got DJ on the ropes. Courtney, with her extreme book smarts, is eventually able to guess the phrase using her geography knowledge, and pulls Duncan into a hug to celebrate. DJ agrees with Alejandro's speech and starts to move the fish in for a kiss, as Heather quickly grabs her fish from Chef and gives it a kiss at the same time, leading to a tie finish with both teams sharing the reward. Team Chris now comes in with ripped up clothes, as Alejandro angrily asks what took them so long. But before he can get an answer, Owen pulls him into a big hug, saying I never thought I'd see you again, Al. Pirate Izzy asks if this be the eel man, and Noah covers her mouth. Alejandro curiously inquires by what Izzy means, and Noah covers asking if anyone ever really knows. After the cast get back on the plane, Heather confronts Cody one-on-one. Cody makes a joke saying there's probably another cod to smooch in first class if she wants him to walk her there. Heather says hardy har har, but she's just here to say that she's tired of them bickering for a spot as leader, and she promises to cease fire while sticking her hand out to shake for a deal. Cody goes to shake it, but Heather quickly pulls away, adding in exchange she wants Cody to go before her if the team loses. Cody sinks on it, and seeing how Heather really put everything in today's challenge to win, he agrees and shakes her hand. Team Amazon and DJ are enjoying first class together, with Cody, Heather, and Sierra all being very welcoming to him, getting him everything he wants. DJ has a confessional saying he sees what they're trying to do, but it doesn't hurt to take some advantages of being in the middle, and with his animal curse fading thanks to Irene, he finally feels like he has some footing to continue in the game. Courtney shivers in her chair, saying it's nice to be in first class, but she could still use some blankets. She smirks as she looks over at Duncan and cuddles up on top of him. Gwen has a confessional gagging. Cody looks over at Duncan and Courtney, confused on why they're being so touchy, but Sierra catches him looking and creepily says that will be us one night, forever, making Cody also have a confessional gagging. Alejandro complains to his team about being in economy class, saying Team Amazon is probably undoing all of his work on DJ. Tyler nervously responds saying he'll come around because they are all trustworthy people, and none of them are hiding any secrets. Alejandro asks if he's sweating, and Tyler chuckles and says he guess he is, he's just gonna confession up, he says while quickly running off. Noah sighs and has a confessional, saying ever since he told Tyler about the real Alejandro, he's been acting suspicious, and Noah is worried he's gonna blow up and reveal what he said, so now Noah is on babysitting duty just to make sure he doesn't tell Al. Alejandro, while Noah is having a confessional, decides to follow Tyler. Tyler sighs and rubs his forehead with his arm to wipe off the sweat. Duncan comes up behind checking in on Tyler, asking how he's doing. Tyler nervously says he's doing A-okay. Duncan tilts his head, asking why he's being so weird. Tyler confesses that he can't keep holding the secret to himself, and he feels like he's gonna blurt it out every time he opens his mouth. Duncan pulls his fist back, saying he better find a way to keep his mouth shut then, or you know what Uncle Ducky will have to do. Just at this moment, the plane starts to fall out of the sky due to running out of gas, but Tyler, during his confrontation with Duncan, asks if he's doing this. The plane still crashes, landing on Owen and Izzy, getting them removed from the challenge for the time being. The first challenge plays out pretty similarly to the original. Even though Tyler is under much more stress here, I still see him doing most of the dives, since a sporty jock like him I imagined would enjoy competing, because it would take his mind off all the secrets he's keeping. The only difference is near the end of the challenge, when Gwen gets shocked by eels, I see Duncan diving in to save her, as Alejandro quickly follows suit after. Duncan carries Gwen out of the water, checking if she's okay, as Alejandro comes out with the golden chain, but like the original, Heather still takes it from Alejandro. Also, after Alejandro tags himself in and jumps in the water, Noah would confront Tyler, telling him he has to keep his lips sealed around Alejandro, as Noah can see he's struggling to keep it secret. Tyler says he's trying to be calm about it, but he's bad with secrets. Besides, Alejandro generally seems like a good guy. Noah tells him that's what Alejandro wants him to see, but remember, as slippery as an eel, and just like the eels down there, he wants to shock you, so don't give him the chance. Tyler clenches his teeth having a confessional biting his fingernails, showing the stress he feels. Izzy would still become Brainzilla and be removed from the competition, but there wouldn't be any song by Owen since it's not a requirement of the season. This also means Owen would come back to the next part of the challenge before it begins, since he doesn't have to spend extra time in the infirmary. With the return of Owen, Alejandro would ask about Izzy, and Owen reveals that she had to leave for the army, making Tyler and Noah confused by that statement. But Alejandro's eyes light up, saying if they had a team member unfairly removed, then it is possible for DJ to join Team Chris as a replacement. Chris puts his hand on his chin pretending to think about it, but says there will be no more team swaps this season, much to Alejandro's annoyance. On the topic of people in the infirmary, Duncan would ask how Gwen is, with Courtney giving him a glare to the back of his head. Owen explains she was periodically buzzing with electricity and it looked awesome. Duncan rolls his eyes and runs off to go see her in the infirmary. Courtney and Heather scold him for leaving, say they still have a challenge to compete in, but Cody says it's fine and they can manage without him. Sierra excitedly agrees with Cody and hugs him from behind, saying she'll go with him first. Cody tries to suggest they should split into pairs with equal weight groups, so the skateboard isn't wobbly, obviously just an excuse he made to avoid pairing up with Sierra. Sierra is a little hurt, asking if Cody thinks she's too big, and Cody, not wanting to be rude, backpedals and says it's just for the best of the team is all. But Heather and Courtney say they don't mind, go ahead, while grinning at Sierra lynching on Cody. Alejandro talks with Tyler while they are waiting for their turn, and tells him that he saw him with Duncan earlier, and he knows he's keeping a secret for him. Tyler, still being stressed out, apologizes for helping someone on the other team. Alejandro assures Tyler that it's fine, and it looks like Duncan was really threatening him, but if Alejandro was let in on the secret, then he would be more than happy to find a way to help Tyler. Tyler looks to Noah, remembering what he said earlier about Alejandro, and is unsure if he should reveal it to Alejandro. But before he has to make a verbal decision, they have their first turn. All first rides go the same. Cody, Sierra, Tyler, and Alejandro. I should probably move them over here actually, and DJ with a good lead over the other two teams. Alejandro continues pressuring Tyler during Noah and Owen's turn, saying he has no intention of trying to force the secret out of Tyler, it just hurts to see him so stressed out about keeping a secret. Alejandro even expressed that he thinks of Tyler as a very valuable member of the team, and he wants him to be able to put 100% of his efforts into every challenge. Tyler, being mostly alone with Alejandro and really needing to get the secret off his chest, reveals to Alejandro that he saw Gwen and Duncan kiss after Paris. Alejandro is very surprised and thanks Tyler for his honesty, asking Tyler if he feels better. Tyler takes a deep breath, feeling a little better, but looking at Alejandro, he remembers the secret he's keeping from him about Noah, and again becomes stressed. Alejandro notices and asks him what else he's hiding, and Tyler says he really shouldn't say. Alejandro has a confessional, pleased with getting that secret about Gwen and Duncan out of Tyler, but he knows Tyler is holding out more and intends to get it from him, because this information is the most useful thing Tyler's done all season, showing he was obviously lying about Tyler being a valuable member. Duncan sneaks into the infirmary to see Gwen, scaring her as he quickly pops up to ask how she's doing. Gwen is a bit standoffish, asking why he's even here instead of at the challenge, and Duncan says he wanted to see her more than he wanted to ride a death trap. Gwen sarcastically responds, charmed. Duncan notices her microaggressions and says if this is about Courtney, and Gwen cuts him off saying it's obviously about Courtney and demands to know why he's still flirting with her. Duncan explains he isn't doing anything and she's the one pushing herself on him. Gwen says that doesn't excuse it and he needs to stop pursuing Gwen if he's really not serious about them, because she is, and she can't handle him playing with her emotions anymore. Duncan insists that he is serious about them and says he'll break up with Courtney today, and he's felt bad about letting Courtney think he's still interested anyways. Gwen reminds him she'll probably be pissed at him, and Duncan says that ship has to sail one way or another because he is very serious about what they have, and he doesn't want Gwen to think for another second that he doesn't care. Gwen gives him a soft smile holding his hand as they both share an electric shock from Gwen's earlier encounter. After the second round of the course ends with Team Chris in last place, I still think Alejandro would sabotage DJ. He's much more important to joining Team Chris now since he's the only thing that can make it a tie between the teams if a merge happens, but like the original, Chris revealed there are no more team swaps and the merge isn't coming anytime soon. Besides, with the intel Alejandro just got on Team Amazon, I don't think he'd be worried about those numbers anymore, as all he has to do is reveal that secret and the team will fall apart. But Alejandro also wants to get the other secret out of Tyler, so he makes a deal with Tyler that he'll tell him one secret in exchange for the one he's keeping from Alejandro. Tyler doesn't want to bear the weight of any more secrets, but Alejandro continues anyway, telling him about how Irene is a fake he made and DJ is still cursed, causing Tyler like the original to blurt that out and make DJ sad as he realized he's still cursed. Then the challenge ends the same with Alejandro sabotaging DJ further and getting him eliminated, also making it the end of team victory. Wrong tier. There you go. After the challenge, Alejandro talks with Tyler, and Tyler apologizes for blurting out his secret, and Alejandro says it's fine, and he should have considered how much pressure Tyler was already under. However, because Tyler did kind of blurt out his secret and got DJ eliminated, he does think it's at least fair that Alejandro gets to hear what that all happened for, meaning the other secret. Tyler sighs, and thinking about all the stuff Alejandro did today, and even helping out DJ with his curse, he figures Noah was completely wrong about Alejandro, and reveals to Alejandro what Noah said about him being slippery and untrustworthy. Alejandro ponders his revelation, saying he hopes then that Tyler can realize that Noah was poorly mistaken, and Alejandro would never disgrace his family name by being like that. Tyler agrees, saying he does seem like a pretty alright dude, and Alejandro continues pushing, saying men like them have to stick together. They are fighters, warriors, and with the numbers on their team dwindling, they have to stick together. Tyler sits up in a better mood, getting all the weight of the secrets off his back, and is excited to work with Alejandro, saying woo, pound it, while putting his fist up for a fist bump. Alejandro gives a forced smile and bumps Tyler's fist with his own. The episode ends with Duncan remorsefully confronting Courtney, as Courtney seems excited to see him, but her face contorts into a frown as he continues talking, and the camera pans out to hear one crying sniff from Courtney. Again, like the last Aftermath, there's nothing to really talk about here. Maybe there would be some sort of segment about blatantly telling the fans to donate money to support Duncan and Gwen or Courtney, because I imagine in this world that love triangle would definitely be a high topic of drama, or at least, like in-universe audience, because it is, you get it, to them it would be a big drama, so that would probably be a big thing to get money. But all the original people were still eliminated, so all the segments would remain the same, besides that maybe. The episode would start with both teams in economy class, as Chris would still be taking a first class to strike a deal with Ezekiel about playing Jack the Ripper in today's challenge. Courtney would be quiet and slouched over, as Sierra asks if she's alright because the entire team knows about Duncan dumping her. Courtney, being too prideful to admit she's hurt, says she's fine to Sierra, and when Sierra keeps pushing, Courtney reiterates that she's fine and stands up to leave in a huff. Heather disingenuously comments Courtney's handling this well, and gets on Duncan's case for breaking up with her because now she's going to be way harder to put up with. Duncan sarcastically apologizes that his love life is such a burden for her. Courtney has a confessional saying Duncan did her a favor anyways, she was wasting too much time on him when this game was for $1 million, not for romance. As Courtney shows a blank piece of paper titled Plan to Win, she explains she's going to fail out her plan to win on it, similar to what she made in All-Stars about what people she wants gone and how she wants to do it. Courtney brags about her strategy, and exclaims she's really happy Duncan left her life for good. Who cares? Not her. Courtney chuckles to herself for a bit before it turns into a silent sob, making Courtney stop and leave the confessional. The rest of the pre-challenge stuff plays out the same. Sierra is crazy on her pizza laptop, Noah makes fun of it, and no one shoots a gross snot rocket, making Alejandro leave the first class and get caught by Ezekiel before the challenge can even begin. The only exception is that Courtney wouldn't offer Gwen the relief mixture for her sunburned hand, as Courtney is too mentally occupied with the breakup and her plans to think about Gwen. Instead, she would accidentally sit on Gwen's hand, and when Gwen expresses discomfort, Courtney just tells her to suck it up. Duncan would check on it, asking Gwen what happened, and we still get the flashback of Cody trying to get a photo with Gwen, but not getting the... Yeah, you get it. It's the same result, just without Courtney's part in it. The cast would still jump out of the plane and go into the bus, while Chris explains the challenge. Heather would still get worried about Alejandro missing, and Gwen would mention that she did a speech on Jack the Ripper in 6th grade. Cody seems pleased, saying that's surprisingly helpful, and Courtney from behind Gwen exclaims a that's no big deal, and her 6th grade speech was on the Tower of London, while fidgeting with her hands mentally counting. The team looks at her with a mix of pity and worry. Courtney has a confessional, angered that her brain can't seem to be able to make a plan, as she shows various papers of all her plans, which all just consist of getting rid of Duncan as soon as possible. There wouldn't be a song for stripping the guard for a clue now, but nothing changes, there's just not a song to accompany it. Because Cody is in a much more important position on the team, I don't think he and Sierra would be taken on the stairs. I do think she would come in front of him to ask for a kiss, but the entire team would be behind Cody, so they would eventually get Sierra to move. Courtney, though, would grab Heather's arm to keep her back so they can talk. Courtney tries to be chummy with her, asking how they're doing on that plan to overthrow Cody. Heather comments asking when that became a priority for her, because when Heather needed her help, Courtney was too busy with her Duncan. Courtney explains she was just getting distracted by dumb boys, but trust me, now my head is in the game fully. Heather slyly says your head is definitely somewhere. Courtney says excuse me, but before the conversation can continue, Ezekiel captures them both. Noah would confront Tyler about undressing the guy with his teeth like the original, except Noah would be noticeably more upset now. Tyler asks why he's so upset, and Noah reveals that since their team is getting a bit smaller, if they were to lose he wants to vote out Alejandro the Eel, so they need to become better at challenges because if Alejandro were gone already, they would become the new team victory. Tyler is a bit insulted, saying he's pulled his fair share on the team, and it doesn't hurt to give him some thanks every now and then. Noah explains that he isn't going to sugarcoat it, and they all have to be better, not just him specifically. Noah has a confessional saying he's a bit wary about Tyler, but he doesn't seem to be as stressed anymore, thus Noah is assuming he's able to keep the secret from Alejandro. And even though he knows Tyler isn't fully with him yet, he needs him to be able to vote off Alejandro, so he has to keep Tyler in the loop. Tyler has a confessional, a bit annoyed at Noah's comments, feeling like Noah thinks he's useless, and he's really quick to point out everyone else's issues like Alejandro and Tyler's, but conveniently seems to ignore his own. Owen would still be revealed to have accidentally stolen the clue when he took the hat, making Noah even more irritated as he just told them they have to get more serious about the game. Out of the people now remaining on Team Amazon, the only person I think that could go on the torture rack is Sierra, given that she's already really tall and least affected by pain. The issue is obviously getting her to agree, as she does like listening to Cody as a leader, but I don't think she's so oblivious that she would offer to literally be tortured because he said so. I mean, it's like 50-50, but stick with me here. Gwen thinks about it for a second and comes up with the idea of telling Sierra if she goes on the torture rack, then Cody will give her a minute-long hug. Cody is resistant at first, but Duncan and Gwen both tell him that she would be tortured on the rack, so he can give at least a hug. And Cody, thinking about it more, realizes it's a fair trade and agrees. Tyler would still offer to be stretched out on the torture rack because of his flexibility. Even if he is still mad at Noah, Tyler has moments on the show where he really wants to prove himself, so I could see this as his chance to show Noah he's useful to the team. Now, because this is done to show off to Noah, I don't think Tyler would go silent during this torture, meaning Noah and Owen wouldn't forget him on the rack. I also don't think they would forget him anyways now, at least not Noah, because Tyler is much more in his mind due to the worry about his loyalty. Even though Tyler could stay for the rest of the challenge, it doesn't change anything if he stays, as Noah and Owen would still win the challenge by themselves, so I would have Tyler still get taken here. Instead, maybe they all run to the next area, but Tyler is still hurting from getting stretched out, and Noah offers to stay back to wait for him, but Tyler doesn't want to be a liability, as that proves Noah's earlier point, so they run ahead and Tyler gets taken while he's in the back. Something adjacent to that, it could also be trips while running, knocking himself unconscious, and Jack the Ripper takes him. It doesn't really matter, I just think a challenge like this works better if people get taken, and since Tyler getting taken or not doesn't change anything, I would still have him get taken here one way or another. Sierra would yelp in pain from the torture rack, as the team struggles a lot more pulling it. Originally it was being done to Heather, so it was kind of fun to them, but now it's a bit difficult to watch. Eventually Sierra gets pulled enough and the clue reveals itself. Cody quickly helps to take off the shackles, checking in on Sierra if she's okay. Sierra aggressively pulls Cody into a hug, shaking him like a teddy bear, saying she's all better now. Gwen and Duncan read the clue and quickly run off to the next area, as Sierra follows behind, hugging Cody in her arms as she runs. Team Amazon makes it to the banquet hall, as Cody now pulls out of Sierra's arms, saying it's definitely been more than a minute. Sierra asks if it has been, and apologizes, saying time flies when you're in heaven. Duncan, with his criminal experience, eyes the hall first through the window to scout, and notices the guard dogs. Talking it over with the team, he says it would be better if less people went in so it'd be easier to sneak, and Gwen says she'll come with. Cody asks why he's on lookout with Sierra, but before he can get an answer, Duncan and Gwen already snuck in. While Duncan and Gwen are sneaking in, crawling on the ground, Gwen's sunburned hand, she ends up accidentally exclaiming an ow of pain when she bumps it. This causes the dogs to all be aware of their presence, but like the original, Gwen is able to pacify them by using the spherical egg like a ball. Duncan is surprised by her and asks when she learned that, and like the original, Gwen reveals that she trained her lizards, and dogs are just as obedient. Duncan smirks at her as she talks, and then notices the clue that they take. Sierra has an arm around Cody's shoulder, talking about what a beautiful night sky it is, and it's the perfect setting for her first kiss. Cody dryly remarks people are getting kidnapped. Sierra says they must appreciate their time then before they get kidnapped, and Cody's eyes widen as he says it might be a bit too late for that, as Jack the Ripper kidnaps them both. Duncan and Gwen would walk out seeing no Sierra and Cody, realizing they're the last of their team. Gwen originally was the one to suggest the wrong location Duncan was at, so Gwen would still interpret the clue wrong, and she and Duncan would go there, as Noah and Owen get the clue from the banquet hall, and like the original, subdue Ezekiel and take him back. Gwen and Duncan would realize they went to the wrong place, as Gwen is a bit bummed about blowing the challenge, but Duncan comforts her, saying at least they get to be at a cool concert by themselves. Duncan places a finger under Gwen's chin, as Gwen holds his arm, but breaks away looking conflicted. Gwen says she's seen how dramatically Corny has been affected by their breakup, and it seems like it's going to interfere with his game, so Gwen understands if he wants to put a pause, but Duncan cuts her off with a kiss, telling her he's happy with the decision he made. Gwen smiles back at him as they hear the loud concert in the background, leading in for a second kiss. Because Duncan is no longer an option to arrive back with, because, you know, he's not coming here, he's been with the show the entire time, I don't think Team Amazon would be able to get anything that is of enough value for Chris to discredit Noah and Owen getting Ezekiel. So like the original should have done, Noah and Owen win the challenge for Team Chris. Chris would reveal to the two teams that their captured teammates were watching everything from cameras, causing the minor drama of Alejandro confronting Noah, and Noah stuttering his way trying to explain himself, and the major drama of Courtney catching Duncan and Gwen kissing. Courtney simply walks up to Duncan and kicks him in the balls, yelling at him for lying to her when he said Gwen and him were nothing. Gwen tries to defend Duncan, but Courtney gets in her face equally mad, blaming her for stealing her boyfriend, and she tackles Gwen to the ground. Courtney has a confessional ripping up her earlier plans, saying she should have listened to her gut all along, and Duncan and Gwen are dead. First, I'm going to cover the lock votes, which are the votes that I think are going to people no matter what from certain people, which is very easy to say Courtney is voting Duncan. I do think she would be very mad at Gwen, but since her and Gwen didn't really bond in this universe, I don't think she's nearly as mad at Gwen as she is at Duncan for cheating on her. Duncan and Gwen are both voting Courtney. I do think they would feel a bit guilty about it, especially Gwen, but given how mad Courtney is at them, they would probably think of it as her or them. The other votes are a bit harder to get a read on. First is Heather. I think she falls on Courtney, mostly because she's already mad at Courtney for going against her deal earlier in the season to overthrow Cody. And even though Heather definitely thinks Gwen and Duncan are in the wrong, she figures it would be easier to convince people to vote for them down the line if they lose, given how much they just became negative figures. Which is a really big deal for Heather, as she was on the bottom of the team not long ago. Also, if Duncan and Gwen were to go, then the others stayed, that would make Courtney still mad, and as today proved, an unhinged Courtney isn't good for the team. Sierra, I'm pretty sure, votes Gwen. As we saw in the original, she was very much against Gwen in this whole ordeal, and we already see notes of her disliking Gwen because Cody has a crush on her. Now that Gwen stole Courtney's boyfriend, Sierra could worry that she'll steal Cody, and that hits much closer to home with Sierra than Duncan. Cody has a good amount of options. He did make a deal with Heather that he would vote Courtney if they lost, but he definitely want to vote Sierra or Duncan, as Sierra is again getting a bit obsessive, and as we saw in the original, he voted Sierra almost every single elimination ceremony he attended. Despite that, I definitely think he'd want to vote Duncan way more for cheating on Courtney, and the bigger thing of taking Gwen, even though Cody doesn't want to admit it. And since he isn't voting Heather, he still considers it falling through on their deal, mostly. Meaning, in a 3-2-1 vote, Courtney is eliminated. Except, I don't think she is. As we see in the next episode when Duncan got voted out, Chris altered the round into a non-elimination with the reasoning, quote, I'm not gonna let Duncan go when it's just getting interesting. And now that the love triangle drama just got revealed and became, quote, interesting, I don't think Chris would let Courtney go, changing this round into a non-elimination. Now if you think this is a bit out there, then I'm sorry for what I'm about to do next, because I also think that Chris would switch Courtney onto Team Chris, because that allows Courtney to be actively pitted against Duncan and Gwen. I know this decision is a much bigger stretch, since Chris said earlier in the season there will be no more team swaps, but Chris's word is about as valuable as a bag of dirt. For example, in Island he made a big deal about saying no one returning back ever after they got voted out. Once he returned people at Merge, his excuse was basically just, I changed my mind. I don't really think Chris would care if he said that before, and would allow Courtney to switch as it creates much more drama. And that's the first part of this what if. I don't really know how to feel about this what if so far. I, as a lot of people, really don't like the love triangle drama, and to make it become so much more of a focus in this early part of the season is not really enjoyable to me, especially because I don't really have a lot of knowledge of how this love triangle really works. This is one of the weird things in the show where usually when a decision is made, we don't have a lot of reasonings about why it was made because it didn't stay for very long, or we have a lot of reasoning because it stayed for a while. The love triangle is one of those things that came out of nowhere with not much reasoning, but yet it happens a lot, so there's still a lot of foundation to it, which means I can't just make it not happen with Gwen and Duncan, which wasn't very fun. The best I try to go with is that Duncan was entertaining Gwen because Gwen actually treats him well and he's getting tired of the toxic stuff with Courtney, even though that's kind of a stretch because we see in the action special leading into World Tour that he seemed to be at least moderately happy with Courtney's like on and off relationship and their drama, so I don't know why he cares so much when he came back, and instantly none of it makes sense, honestly, and I did the best I could trying to create a more cohesive plot there, but I don't know, it's fine for what it is. Also, if this was the real show, I think Team Amazon's bickering would get really tiring really quickly, considering they're fighting like every single episode, and it's annoying how they continue fighting and not being a good cohesive team, but yet Team Victory just keeps losing and losing, and it just makes Team Victory look that much weaker that they're losing to this team. It's so dysfunctional, but that's Team Victory for you. There was so much, what would you call the opposite of plot armor, like plot weapons against Team Victory to lose, that you'd be really hard pressed to find a situation where they get saved. I am excited to write the next part as I feel a lot of fun dominoes have been set up in this first part. I do like the things of like Cody being the leader, I do like Tyler and Noah getting a lot more screen time, and obviously Courtney moving on to Team Chris. That's gonna be really interesting now with Courtney being, you know, the middle vote between Tyler and Alejandro and Noah and Owen. But as for this first part, I don't know, it wasn't the most eventful, especially because the elimination order was verbatim to the original, but yeah, I'm sorry this video took so long to get out. I was having a lot of personal issues, but I'm hoping that if you sat through here that this video was at least somewhat worth the wait, and I promised part 2 will not take 10 years to come out. Anyways, bye.